Hey, besties. So I didn't tell anybody that I was going to be here. So nobody knows that I'm here. If you have my notifications on, you know that I'm here, though. If you are one of my subscribers on YouTube, then you know that I'm here. But otherwise, I didn't tell anybody else. So the reason I didn't tell anybody else is because I wanted to do a secret flash sale for my readings where I'm offering for the next week 50% off. Yes, a whopping 50% off of the readings. Learn Your Sidereal Birth Chart, Personal Year Ahead, What the Fuck is Happening in the Sky, and the Shadow Work reading. So these are all of my, I believe, 75-minute readings, except for the What the Fuck is Happening in the Sky reading. That one is just an hour. But the rest are 75-minute readings, and I wanted to do just a quick and dirty 50% off sale. If you use the code, it'll be in the description, YT50. And this is for all of my YouTube subscribers, for anybody who happens to view this video. It'll also be up in my Patreon for my Patreon subscribers as well, because I like to do little discounts for you guys every so often. So this is just my way of saying thank you for tuning into the lives. Thank you for subscribing to my YouTube channel. And thank you for being interested in my work. I hope to see a bunch of new faces in my office, my virtual office, as a result of doing this. And if not, I hope to work with you sometime in the future. So yeah, and then I guess readings for people who haven't gotten one with me before. The Learn Your Sidereal Birth Chart is excellent for getting acquainted with your sidereal birth chart. If you've never gotten a sidereal reading before, or if you want to get more of an astrotherapy perspective on your sidereal chart, that's what I like to do. Again, that reading is 75 minutes. Just gives you a different way to use astrology and look at your chart. Then the Personal Year Ahead reading, also 75 minutes. That gives you a look at the perfection year that you're in, starting at the time of your birthday. It tells you what your planetary lord of the year is and which parts of your chart are activated for this age in life for you. And we do a little bit of forecasting and looking into what are the major themes coming up for you in the year ahead, as well as some things to look out for, transits to pay attention to, and of course, you can ask any questions that are calling for you. This is a great birthday reading, but you can also book it really any time of the year that you want if you just want to get clarity on what it is that you're experiencing and to orient yourself in time and space. Which leads me to the What the Fuck is Happening in the Sky reading. That is a reading that you get whenever you want to ask your astrologer friends, is something going on in the sky right now? Because what the fuck? You bring whatever life circumstance or issue or problem it is that you're having. We talk through the astrology of it. We use astrology to process. It's more astro forward than therapy forward, but at the same time, astrotherapy forward because that's just what I do. But that one focuses a little bit more on the actual transits going on and how those are affecting your personal birth chart. So that one's really for the astro nerds. And then last but not least, I have the shadow work reading, which is one of my favorites to do. Actually haven't done it in a while, but that is a reading for anybody who wants to work on their shadow, inner child work, inner teenager work, who wants to do some somatic work, who wants to see maybe the less favorable or more uncomfortable parts of themselves and gain more self-acceptance. It's great for holding up a mirror and to help you own the disowned parts of yourself that maybe you tend to project onto everyone else. It's great for dissolving old narratives and writing new stories about yourself and your life. And it's just great if you want to learn more about yourself in the ways that maybe you can't always see yourself. So I love that reading personally. It uses the 7th house and the 12th house, as well as your sun and some other placements to figure out really what is the part of you that you feel like wasn't allowed to exist or that you struggle to embody today as an adult. So that is also 75 minutes. Again, all of these readings, 50% off if you use the code YT50. The links will be in the description once I post this video. Cool. So now that that's out of the way, I would like to do something a little bit different and pull a card. I'm using the This Might Hurt Tarot deck by Isabella Rotman. It's one of my favorite decks. It's the first deck that I've ever owned, and it is very vibrant, very colorful, very direct in its messaging. So, since I'm not really a tarot boy, but I dabble from time to time, I like to use this deck because it makes it easier for me to make an interpretation. So, I'm going to do that. Just card of the day, maybe a little message for, I don't know, Mars retrograde, since Mars is stationing retrograde this Sunday. It's slowing down the rest of the week and maybe even pausing. So I don't know, spirits, ancestors, I just welcome you into the space. I thank you for being here, for all of your wisdom, your guidance, your insights. And Spirit, I just ask for a little word, some advice, some clarity, some insight on this Mars in Gemini and Cancer retrograde that we're experiencing over the next several months. What do we need to know? And maybe what is some advice or what is the path forward for us? Ooh. I'll shuffle a couple more times. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe. Okay. All right, cut the deck and pull from the top. We have the Ace of Pentacles. Looks like this. This is actually the card that I saw in a dream before I bought this deck, and that made me want to get it. So, Ace of Pentacles, our card on the top, and I'll just do a easy 2-card spread. Knight of Cups on the bottom. So the Knight of Cups will serve as the context in which the Ace of Pentacles exists. So I'm going to set both of these down, think about them a little bit more before I just start saying things and see what comes up. So Ace of Pentacles in the context of the Knight of Cups. So it's funny, before I came on and did this live, I had a thought that it was urgent to let everyone know, like, hey, it's really important to learn how to communicate your needs. To communicate your needs, but also to articulate your needs properly so that people can actually know what you need and give it to you. I think it's hard enough to own your needs in the first place, to admit that, like, you do need something from somebody else and to allow them to give it to you, but it's also difficult to verbalize what it is that you need to another person in a way that they can actually receive and show up and understand what it is that you need. I think a lot of times we want other people to be mind readers for us, or we want them to just know without us having to say, or to be able to figure it out somehow. I think this is just a habit of, being a human, having grown up with a mother sometimes or a family member, whoever, that did have to attune to us and learn our needs before we could learn our needs. But the older we get, I think the more that changes, the more autonomy we get ourselves to say what it is that we do or don't need. So I kind of have that on my mind, that I was just reminded of that. I forgot about it actually, but was just reminded of that when I saw this Knight of Cups. Because the Knight of Cups, especially in this deck, is known as like he who rides for love, I believe is what she calls it. And you can see it's interesting for a knight card, like it's a person sitting on a motorcycle with a warm cup of coffee or tea or whatever that might be. And they actually look kind of chill for this to be a knight card. The picture of the coloring and the lighting on this card is very kind of peaceful to me, very cooling, very soft. And so, as much as nights are about like swift and fast moving action, they're also, in this case, it's like maybe a little bit more focused and a little bit more, dare I say, calm, cool, and collected. I don't know if I believe that that's the case, but there's something about this being very like steadfast and steadfast in this pursuit of whatever it is, dealing with the body. So cups usually deal with feelings and emotions, our bodies, our needs. So immediately this card does represent, I think, Mars and Cancer to me. Knight as swift direct action, cups as water. And knowing this spread is about Mars retrograde, it makes me wonder what it would look like to, oh, well, it makes me wonder about the context being acting on your feelings. And like I said, Knight of Cups, in this deck, as He Who Rides for Love, they talk about like rose colored glasses, like how when you first get a crush on somebody and you have this like rose colored glasses type of perspective on them, and it makes you feel very like clingy and enmeshed and just like in love with this person, even if you barely know them. Or just like the pursuit of whatever it is that you have feelings for. And so if I'm thinking about the original message or download or whatever you want to call it, about learning how to articulate your needs or learning how to ask for what it is that you need or to share about your needs, that kind of reminds me of this. Like instead of um what did I just say? Instead of like hastily maybe asserting your feelings or just diving into a situation and not fully knowing how you feel about it. Um, since this card does feel a little bit slower, it is making me think about Mars actually stationing retrograde and us having to pause and kind of reassess how we feel instead of just going for it fully. So if Ace of Pentacles is our like advice or our remedy or the plot maybe that exists within this context of like learning your feelings and acting on your feelings. Ace of Pentacles, you see there's a hand reaching out from the clouds holding this big pentacle, this big coin. There's also this gate at the bottom. Well, it's an open gate. There's not actually a gate around it, but this you can see this, oops, this right here, this like wall. There's a gate, open path. You can walk right through the door. There's nothing like really getting in the way. But aces are about new beginnings or offers or um, starting, getting started, I think, at all, taking the opportunity, moving forward, taking action. And then Pentacles, dealing with earth, dealing with materials, dealing with resources. This kind of makes me think about like having the opportunity at all, like having the things that you need be available. You just have to reach out and grab them. Like how that hand is reaching out and grabbing the coin. The opportunity is there, the resources are there, things are available. It's just a matter of actually pursuing them and asking for it. So that does kind of add up, right? Like especially if I'm holding them together like this, and I don't know if this is the order that I would hold them in based on how the camera flips things. But if I did hold them up like this, it is this knight like steadily moving towards this resource. And hmm, yeah, there's that question of like, again, how do we move towards getting our needs met? And like, do we actually move towards getting the need met? Do we actually acknowledge and own that there is a need that needs to be met? Do we actually acknowledge that there are maybe more resources available than what we think or what we believe there is? And then there's also something to be said about like changing your perspective on what is considered a resource. I think a lot of times with pentacles, like the first thing I think about is money, money in the tangible sense, but sometimes like money maybe isn't the resource that we actually need. Sometimes the resource is a hug. Sometimes it's words of affirmation or validation. Sometimes it's somebody sharing food or sharing a meal with you, or somebody just listening and carrying, helping you carry the burden of your feelings instead of you having to carry it all yourself. Sometimes it's your ancestors and your ancestor work, lighting a candle, doing a bath. It's making me think about making good use of what's available to you and getting creative, maybe redefining what your needs are or how they show up in your body and meeting them accordingly. Like maybe it's not always money. Sometimes it is money. Sometimes it's absolutely money. I know for me right now, it is definitely money. But yeah, what does it look like to actually pursue the things that you need with what you already have? So I don't know. I'm going to read the description in the little booklet real quick to wrap this up just to see if I get anything else from that. Like I said, I don't really be doing cards like that. So if you have a different interpretation of what Ace of Pentacles in the context of Knight of Cups means, I would love for you to leave a comment in the description, or I would love for you to leave a comment and tell me what your interpretation of these two cards are in the perspective of Mars retrograde in Cancer. So context. Well, actually, I'll read for Ace of Pentacles first, and then I'll read the context of the Knight of Cups. So Ace of Pentacles says, "Get that garden." Like all aces, the Ace of Pentacles represents an opportunity. The suit of Pentacles is about corporeal things, the real stuff that results from all of the thinking, feeling, and dreaming that we do in the other suits. Hey Sherry. Um, the suit of Pentacles is grounded in reality. Thus, the opportunity of the Ace of Pentacles represents a tangible one. This is a card for new jobs, new homes, money coming your way, or a new relationship with your body. Ding, ding, ding. It is not a promise that any of these things will work out perfectly for you, but it is an open door beneath the godlike hand offering you the shining golden pentacle that is a verdant gate. Past the gate is a beautiful garden, lush with fruit and opportunity. Will you go inside? What seeds will you plant there? In readings, the Ace of Pentacles encourages you to nourish whatever opportunity is being presented to you. If none seem to be coming your way, seek them out. Apply for that job, plant a garden, get a gym membership, or start selling your handmade jewelry on the internet. Sometimes we have to make our own opportunities. I mean, I didn't even read for Knight of Cups, and that already kind of sounds like what I was saying. The opportunity is there, the resources are there, the materials are there. You just have to actually make the conscious effort to pursue them. But what gets in the way of you pursuing them? That's what I want to look at the Knight of Cups for. So I'm going to flip to that page. For Knight of Cups, again, the one who rides for love. Summarized eloquently in Modern Tarot by Michelle T., the Knight of Cups is in love with love. I interpret this in two ways. First, the Knight of Cups is enamored with romantic love. Second, the Knight of Cups represents sensitivity. In both interpretations, the Knight of Cups is ruled entirely by the heart. If the Knight of Cups is a person in your life, you've likely already fallen for them. If your knight seems mature and able to align their love of love with the real world, great. If this all feels too good to be true, then it likely is. Be wary of anyone who becomes emotionally intimate with you too quickly. Consider your knight without your rose-colored glasses on. They may be all about the glamour of love, but are they up for the difficult moments too? If you are the Knight of Cups, take a breath. Maybe you are swept up in a romantic whirlwind and ignoring the other aspects of your life. Or maybe you're just too busy dreaming to live in real life. Perhaps you are more the pining type of knight, in love with a love that isn't giving you enough back. Snap out of it, turn your love towards yourself. that kind of read me a little bit. So I'll end on this note. I feel like that kind of read me a little bit. It's making me think about like my own romantic life, and not that Knight of Cups is specific to romance, but just thinking about for myself, and something I've been thinking about recently is, I do want to be in a relationship. I do crave like a romantic relationship. Um and I've mostly been in long distance relationships like throughout my life, especially since I've been older, like since going to college and graduating and moving away from my hometown and stuff like that. Most of my relationships have been long distance. And I've had both my somatic therapist and my talk therapist ask me, like, do you feel like you do that to protect yourself? Or do you do that because you feel like um, relationships need to be like one, or uh, what did she say? She just asked me this the other day on Thursday. She said, "Do you feel like relationships, like you need to overcome something, or relationships need to be challenging, or like something happens in my brain that makes me feel like the relationships worth pursuing don't come easily?" And she asked me, like, do I do that to protect myself? And I was like, I hadn't really thought about it that way before. I know there's like a worthiness wound around like earning and deserving things, and like feeling like I really have to work hard and like prove myself for relationships, especially romantic relationships. But I hadn't thought about it in particular as like protecting myself, or kind of safeguarding myself to say, well, this thing was already difficult before I pursued it. And so, like, if it doesn't work out, it's not my fault. Like the odds were kind of already stacked against me. And so it was a way of like protecting my ego from rejection or whatever it is, because all of these other things are in the way. And so if it doesn't work out, at least it's not personal. But then the one time that I really, well, maybe the two times that I deeply got my heart broken, once whenever I was in high school with my first girlfriend, and then in 2021. Those were both times that the relationship just ended for reasons that weren't explained to me for whatever reason. I don't remember how the one in high school ended. I think she just was into somebody else the first time. And then the one in 2021, she just told me she wasn't in love with me anymore. And I didn't know how to process that, but I was completely devastated by it, because it felt like I did something wrong or I wasn't enough. And I had to actually like confront that wound in that relationship that I think had been in some of my other relationships, but that I never fully processed, because there was usually something else in the way that I could blame. So to get to this point now where like I find myself wanting to try again, but I am scared. Like I have practical reasons why I'm scared, thinking about um this card combination. I do have practical reasons why I'm scared and maybe uninterested to date again, like COVID, being on different pages about COVID with like most people, and anyone who I'm on the same page about COVID with lives in another state. So it'd be another long distance situation. Um, there's like the newly transitioned, and then like what are the types of people that I'm interested in? Women, non-binary people, not really interested in cis men, but like, hey, you never know. Having to actually be the one now that I'm in a perceived male body, like the social expectation of now I have to actually pursue relationships or initiate relationships, where usually I'm more on the receiving end, or like being pursued. And like, do I trust myself to actually seek out like a good partner, or to actually move through the dating process in a way that's a little bit slower and a little bit more methodical in the pentacle sense, versus just going going for it with the rose colored glasses on and ignoring all the red flags like I've done in the past. So, but the point of all of this is the need exists that I, want to be in a relationship, and even wanting to be closer in some of my friendships as well, putting myself out there with my work, all of these different things. And instead of pursuing the things that I want, the things that I need, I find reasons why it can't work out or what the obstacles are, and I focus on those instead of actually going for the thing that I want. So I think with Ace of Pentacles being the remedy is to actually look at, like I said, what's available, to actually go and find go and find the things that I like, the things that feel good, to start dating if that's what I want to do, or to find other ways to get those needs met, but to actually meet the needs, not to just let the needs keep going unmet. Sounds like the gist of this spread. And that's scary. It's vulnerable. I don't want to do it. I want it to come to me. I don't know if it will. I mean, it might. Part of the whole like getting creative with it is when you put yourself out there, people find you, people see you. So it may not even be that I have to pursue or that you have to pursue the thing. It could just be putting yourself out there, making yourself available to the opportunity that's coming. So the opportunity has to see you in order for you to get it. And then also, like we said on the live yesterday, um, there's something attractive about knowing what you want and knowing what you need, and like declaring that in an open and kind of fearless way and confident way. People are drawn to that and attracted to that. And so it also eliminates any confusion that someone might have, or kind of going back to this Knight of Cups thing, it eliminates any illusions that someone might have about their capacity for a relationship with you or meeting your needs or whatever it is. If you declare the need and they know that they can't make it, then that you know what needs you need to meet for yourself and what needs you can let somebody else show up and meet for you, if you know clearly just what your needs are in general. So maybe at the risk of just repeating myself again, the point of this is to pursue the need and make yourself available to it. To own the needs and then to actively pursue them, whether that is, actively pursuing it or just making yourself open to it. So I don't know. If something else comes up in the next few minutes, I will say that, but I'm gonna kind of land on that for this Mars retrograde, and adding in the extra layer of knowing how to articulate your needs is half the battle, because I think that's part of the Mars and Gemini part. Instead of just going along with what you think you should need or what everyone else says that you need or whatever it is, there is a bit of a self-determining aspect that says, no, I am who I am, different from everyone else. And I have to communicate that. I have to stand for that part of myself instead of just kind of going along with what everyone else says I should, want, or need. So let me see what y'all are saying in the chat. Sherry says this definitely resonates for me. Also, hi Netta, I did see you come in. Netta says it's a wall without it having to be one for real for me, like literal distance instead of emotional or mental. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. In person, building a relationship in person, even though in some ways it is easier because you have the physical things. That's when I tend to feel a little bit more like putting people at arm's length, because I don't want them to get too close. I don't want to get too close. I don't want them to get too close because it would hurt even more. So yeah, it is a wall. It is a barrier. My heart is guarded. Nods. Sherry says, I would love to be in a queer platonic relationship, but I keep finding reasons why it won't happen for me and why I don't deserve it. I mean, yeah, basically same. And that's tough too, especially like with relationships that are a little bit less traditional or conventional. Sometimes it can be hard to find like-minded people who actually want to engage in that, but also they do exist. And that is kind of one of the burdens of being queer sometimes, is the way that you have to put yourself out there, is not the norm. And so you kind of have to do unfamiliar things to get the unfamiliar need met or whatever it is. So I hear that too. And I hope that you do find it. I hope that this retrograde somehow works itself out, that you can get those relationships if you want them. And Netta says, you could find someone who has released the scripts of heteronormativity, but it would have to be mutual pursuit. Yeah. That's the other thing, too, that be beating my ass. And this would be a whole other conversation, but it is part of this conversation where, like, I do have a crush on someone if y'all follow me on Twitter, because I'm not going to say this on here in case she sees it, but I did mention having a crush on someone who has a boyfriend and they've only been together for a little while. And that's kind of what brought up the conversation with my therapist of like, why are you always choosing people who are emotionally unavailable? And I'm like, well, duh, because I'm emotionally unavailable to myself, which is probably another aspect of this, by the way, cultivating emotional availability to yourself and to cultivating emotional availability within yourself so that you can actually identify your needs. Like, hello, that's a whole thing too, in the same vein of things that we're talking about. And so, but anyway, I was mentioning how, like, this is a person who hasn't known me for very long at all. And like, to date as a man is new for me. And like, the patriarchal expectations of men and like all of those other things are just not me at all. They're not something that I identify with, not something that I can maintain, not something that I can even pretend to perform. But I know that that's like an expectation that, especially other cis women have, or sometimes even other queer women. Like, we all live in these systems, we all kind of hold these narratives in our heads. So that's something that I've noticed has also kept me from wanting to pursue relationships and get my needs met, because I feel like I've already let them down because I don't hold up the ism. So yeah, finding someone who's already released those scripts and who's just interested in partnership or whatever that looks like in a more self-determined way, that would also be something that I have to be willing to put myself out there and reject or get rejected by people who still want to do traditional relationship and instead like instead do our own thing. So I don't know. I'm also interested in polyamory because it does feel like something that I've been drawn to and feels kind of necessary at this point for just some of the other relationships that I maintain, and like wanting to keep those because they're valuable to me, not just because, not I don't necessarily want to let them go just because of, this fear of competition or whatever in relationships. Like, I do have a big enough heart and big enough capacity for tons of people, otherwise I wouldn't do the work that I do. But it's still a matter of like actually figuring out what does that look like in practice. So maybe that's another final word on this is, not only are we pursuing our needs, identifying our needs, making ourselves open to what it is that we want and desire in this life and finding realistic ways to attain and achieve that, but also um, having a plan or a framework, creating a framework of what that would actually look like to have in practice, to actually embody that, to actually live that out instead of it just existing as an idea or a potential thing that could happen. What does it look like to actually embody praxis in that sense? So if you ever want to talk about that, I'm happy to. I've been polyamorous since 23, so 12 years. That's a while. Yeah, I might be down to talk about that because I've talked about it some. I've talked about it some with with Emilia as well, and with other people in the past, and just hasn't played out because I haven't, really been pursuing multiple people at once or been pursued by multiple people at once in a while. So I'm curious about it. This was interesting. I had no plan. I was very resistant actually to showing up and doing an early live before work, but I knew I was going to be tired later, so I'm glad that I came here and did this. I'm glad that I decided to pull some cards because that gave me some more things to think about moving forward with this retrograde. Um, and yeah, I dropped some cute little Easter eggs at the beginning of this live if you showed up late. So please watch the replay. To get your special 50% off discount. Again, the codes will be in the description, and tell a friend to tune into the daily lives. So I'm going to go finish getting ready for work. Thank you so much to everyone who showed up with no advance notice. That lets me know that you have your notifications on, and that makes me feel very special. If you haven't already, please like the video. Again, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. Follow me on Patreon, on Twitter, at MixMercury, on Instagram as well. And I will see you all next time for our daily live. Y'all have a wonderful day. Peace.